This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. We have with us at WZRD jazz vocalist Amber Weeks. How are you, Amber?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. Happy to see you. I'm going to be in the Midwest next week. And so this is
You
a
are?
great preamble to that. Yes, yes,
Mm.
yes, yes, yes. I'm going to
Well,
be at the Max Arts Expo where I'm going to be doing a showcase on Monday evening.
oh,
Yeah. Mhm.
okay, awesome. Are you going to be anywhere near Chicago?
You never know. I don't Indianapolis might be as close as I get
Mhm.
this time, but I'm working on it.
Awesome. Well, Amber, let's talk a little bit about how you got so inspired with jazz. You were very, very young when you got introduced to jazz.
Yes, pretty much from the beginning. My
Mhm.
parents are both, well, my father's passed away, but to be he's still here. Um, my parents were both music enthusiasts of all genres, and my father was a kind of like a Frank Sinatra clone when he was very young. He loved Frank Sinatra. And so we had a lot of music in the house playing, and certainly jazz was one of those genres. In addition to that, my parents had friends who were jazz musicians, and so we were around it all along.
Mhm.
And so it was just kind of almost like my blood.
Well, what about the singing? You were how old were you? Very, very young, 4 years old, and then you were on the coffee table for your first song to your family.
Yes, yes. My mother used to play music in the house, and my sister Dawn and I, we would get on the coffee table and we would sing, and frequently it would be to a Nancy Wilson song. My
Mhm.
parents were good acquaintances of Sparky Tavares, who was Nancy Wilson's road manager. So we had a lot of her recordings. And so my sister and I would get on the table and sing things like, Wasn't It Wonderful? And Guess Who I Saw Today? But imagine a 4-year-old singing, Guess Who I Saw Today? But no, Nancy was particularly special. There were others, but one thing about Nancy was she was a great storyteller. And so if you're four, you're listening to the story. Even if Guess Who I Saw Today, as an example, is something that maybe a 4-year-old shouldn't understand so well.
However, as a 4 year old, you were attracted to the songs. Was it on account of Nancy Wilson's voice or the melodies, the music?
That's a great question. I think it was a little of all of it. Again, her storytelling, the uniqueness of the sound of her voice, her delivery, the melodies. And I think too, one of the things about Nancy and several other artists was that she articulated brilliantly. And so you could understand every word that she was saying.
Mhm. Did you ever, uh, when you were young, you probably didn't understand the significance of the lyrics, and she's a great storyteller. Do you remember about how old you were before you actually understood the the import of the lyrics?
Oh boy. I think just like anything else, as I aged, things had deeper and deeper meaning to me. I mean, at 5, I was gonna understand something differently than I did at 4,
Mhm.
etc.
Yes.
And even, boy, I love this question. I think even in my own life now, as I continue to mature, at least chronologically, um, my perspective on a lyric changes
Mhm.
given, where I am in, in my life. So I think that that's kind of an ongoing thing. Um, So yeah, I think I always had some understanding of Guess Who I Saw Today. It just became more and more profound as I aged. I mean, I keep thinking about that song just because of its gravity, should we say?
Mhm. Yes. Yes, it's a great story, and a very sad story. But
Yes.
when I first heard the song, I loved the melody. I wasn't even thinking about the story, and then finally, my friend told me about, you know what it's talking about, right?
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. And I think too, I probably was in my 20s
Mhm.
when I actually spent more time with the song. And of course, by then I'm starting to develop my own craft. And there's there's just an art in the way that she tells the story so calmly without really giving away what the last, few words of the song are.
Mhm.
And so
It's
there's
actually
that
like the
comprehension as
last
well.
word. Actually,
Yeah,
the last
I
word.
saw you. Right. Right. Exactly.
Oh. Were you able ever to meet Nancy Wilson in person?
I did. I forgot about that, but yes, I did. I did. I was fortunate enough to she was at Marla's Memory Lane. She was a friend of Marla Gibbs. And so she was here in LA. It's a smaller club. I happened to be good friends with Barbara Collin, who had worked for John Levy, Nancy's manager, and so I was able to go backstage and talk to her, and so
Oh.
that was pretty amazing. And it was early in my career. I was pretty young,
Mhm.
but yeah, it definitely had an impact on me, and I saw her perform many, many, many times in several different venues.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when you spoke with her, do you still remember what you talked about?
I do. I do. I didn't have a lot of time, and so I had to make sure that I said the most important thing.
Mhm.
And so I told her, I said, I've been listening to your music my whole life. My parents would play your music all the time. And so she looked at me and she said, "Thank your parents for sharing my music with you."
Mhm.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Mhm. Would you say that in that meeting, did you get any not specific advice, but did you learn anything just in that short time that you spoke with her?
I think the thing that sticks with me to this day was her graciousness. I think that by itself, just her way of being in that moment taught me a lot about how I should be as a performer with people who take the time to, you know, listen to my music, download it, buy a CD, come to hear me perform, stop me when I'm someplace else doing something else, um, and express an enthusiasm about what I'm doing, to be gracious and appreciate that somebody is actually choosing to spend time with me in
Mhm.
their way as they're living their lives. Yeah.
Mhm. When you you and your producer, or maybe you yourself, you said that I think Nancy Wilson had about 60 albums. So have you listened to all of them?
I don't know that I've listened to all 60. I've certainly listened to many of them.
Mhm.
When I was trying to figure out which songs to do, I actually had a box set of hers that
Oh.
had quite a range of her music. And I did listen to quite a bit of the box set, kind of scanned through some things. One of the things is that she was great about performing covers and making them her own. And
Mhm.
so, part of it was there were songs that I felt I personally didn't have an interest in performing. There were some that I didn't remember so well. And so it was just about, doing the research. But I've been, you know, like re-listening to her music like intently for the last several years because in
Mhm.
fact when I did the album Pure Imagination, the song When He Makes Music, while other people have performed it and recorded it, Peggy Lee most notably, um, the way that she did it just really stuck out to me, and so I chose to put it on Pure Imagination, and so that kind of started my really leaning into her a little bit more. So I
Mhm.
didn't listen to all of them, but I listened to a lot of them. Again, looked to songs that I remember from her. I think that's the way to say it. So there were songs that I remembered from her, most specifically what I call the coffee table songs. So
Mhm.
that was Wasn't It Wonderful, 10 Good Years, Guess Who I Saw Today, and I'm forgetting one, but those are the three that come to mind right now. And then the other ones, um, yeah, just listening for something about what she did that touched me and inspired me. It was a lot of work though.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Listening to music is like a leisure activity, but for you during those years, it was leisure plus work and leaning more on the work side.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I remember when I was a teenager, I was around musicians and one in particular I'd go into his house and it was like dead silent and I was like, "Why is it silent in here and you're a musician?" He says, "Because when I'm doing it, oh, let me turn that off. He says, when I'm at home, I need to relax." And he says, "I'm listening." He says, "Because I'm on a lot of the albums that people play, and I'm listening for, what I remember about the recording session." And for me, it's the same. I mean, I can do it. I usually have music on if other people are here and we're having a meal or something like that. Or if I want to dance, then I'll put on music that I can dance to.
Mhm.
Otherwise, unless I just really want to just kind of sink into a mood. Like I love In a Sentimental Mood by Duke Ellington and John Coltrane. And so that kind of puts me in a very special place. Otherwise, if I'm listening to a vocalist, I'm really listening to the vocalist and honoring the vocalist and their artistry. And
Mhm.
so it's a different exercise. I do it,
Mhm.
but it's for a different reason than most
Mhm.
people. Yeah.
And then, in other words, you're analyzing, and your mind starts analyzing and working.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I enjoy it, but yes, there's some analysis going on as well. Yes.
Mhm. Well, while you were listening to all those Nancy Wilson albums, was there any song or songs that were a surprise to you that you seem to have missed before and now you really enjoy?
Oh boy. Um, yeah, and there were some that I chose not to record, but that I would like to revisit. I think one is I think it's called Over the Weekend,
Mm.
and that song surprised. Oh yeah, there's Over the Weekend and there's another one I didn't do. I didn't record. Oh, The Right to Love.
Mm.
Those are gems that are really special. And I just, with what I was wanting to do on the album and give some variety, those are songs that are kind of on the balladish side, and I wanted to swing a little bit
Mm.
inside of some of the album, in addition to doing the ballads that I really wanted to do on this particular project.
Mm.
And Over the Weekend to me is interesting because my memory is when I was doing my research, I believe that song was recorded in the 60s, and it actually talks about, going away over the weekend with her lover. Pretty it's I think it's implied that they're not married, and
Mm.
it's interesting that that topic would have been covered in a song at the time. The other one is The Right to Love, which at some point I will record. It was actually written by a journalist whose name escapes me, who was white and he was dating a black woman.
Mhm.
And I think again something she recorded in the 60s, and it talks about how people would make judgments about them and give them crazy stares and whatever,
Mhm.
and how they had to find a lyric. Let's see, we find our consolation in each other's eyes. And I think I think the song still has relevance when we look at the judgments that people make, unfortunately, about relationships that they don't think should happen.
Mhm. For that, for the song "Supper Time," um,
Yes.
do you know what was the story behind "Supper Time"?
Oh, I think that's my favorite.
Mhm.
Um, so I chose that one because um I took advantage of the fact that Nancy Wilson had recorded it, but the history of the song is this. Moss Hart, who was a lyricist, was partnered with um why is his name escaping me? Irving Berlin. And they were writing a bunch of songs in the 30s, and none of the songs had a tie to each other. And so while they were working on all these songs, Irving Berlin chose to write a song specifically for Ethel Waters, and it's the song "Summertime." I mean, Supper Time.
Mhm.
And the when Moss Hart and Irving Berlin wanted to put these songs together on Broadway, they did a music review. So it wasn't a musical. But to tie each song together, they made commentary about current events. And so this was 1933. And so they the headline for Supper Time was "Unknown Negro Lynched by a Frenzied Mob." And I've always known the story, and I thought that the song was important to have its context, or to regain its context, because a lot of singers have sung the song without that context. So what I chose to do, and I know you've just played it, was to put in a monologue. Some people call it a spoken word, after Mark Cargill's brilliant violin solo, and actually tell the story so that people now have the context, and it's no longer simply a song about another woman whose man took off somewhere. I thought it was important.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a beautiful song.
Thank you.
What years, just for the context, for our listeners, what years were the years that Nancy Wilson sang?
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to remember now. I don't remember the precise date that she started singing, but it would have been in the late 50s.
Mhm.
And she recorded into the 90s.
Mhm. Mhm. Nice.
Yeah.
When,
Long career.
yes, yes. Oh, you have such a beautiful voice. And when was it that you actually started taking voice? And I know that you had that you practiced with choir in the beginning.
Oh yeah. You've done your homework. So, yeah, my parents couldn't afford voice lessons when I was a child. So I actually started studying with a voice coach in my 20s, and I've been studying ever since. I did have a few lessons when I was a teenager. Wonderful woman named Gwendolyn Wyatt, who's actually an opera singer.
Mm.
And I took a couple of lessons from her. And that was when I knew I really wanted voice lessons.
Mhm.
But
How
yeah,
did you how did you find Gwendolyn Wyatt? How were you able to connect with her?
oh, it's a long story. In a nutshell, I was singing in church choir. I was also singing no, I wasn't singing church choir yet. I was singing in school choir. And the director of the Glee Club decided that I was one of the girls in the Glee Club who should be included in what was like a scene study of Madame Butterfly that was featuring Gwendolyn Wyatt, and it was something being done at the schools. And so I got to know her. Fortunately, she lived around the corner from us.
Mhm.
And so as I got to know her, she offered to give me some coaching.
For free?
Yeah, the the
Oh.
the first the first few lessons were for free to continue, of course, as should happen.
Mhm.
She wanted to be compensated, which she should have been, and we just couldn't do it.
Mhm.
So, but if I had continued that direction, I'd have become an opera singer. All right. And I really
Mhm.
enjoy doing jazz, so it's fine.
Well, when you learned how to sing opera, did that help you in singing jazz?
Well, yeah, it taught me the importance of doing things like vocalizing and, using your voice properly so that you don't damage it, so that you can perform and, record and, you know, use your voice for a long time.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You have a certain way of singing that's very, very sweet but very strong. How did you find that voice?
Well, thank you. I think honestly, a lot of that is credit to my current voice coach, who's been my voice coach for the last 20 years, and that's Sue Raney, because that's the kind of singer she is. And she taught me how to do both of those things, to
Mhm.
use my voice, to use all of my range, use it with strength and with gentleness when the lyric calls for it. And yeah, yeah, and honor the lyric, because that's very, very important. And some people don't necessarily pay attention to that, but the lyrics count.
Mhm. Yes. How did you meet Sue Rainey? How did you get connected with her?
Again, Barbara Collin, who has done some booking for me over the years. I was studying with someone else, and she felt like with the type of voice that I have and the material that I gravitate toward, that Sue was a good uh pairing for me. And
Mhm.
so she introduced me to Sue. And as they say, the rest is history.
Do you still remember how long it was when you started, as you had Sue Rainey as a coach? When did you start coming in on your own, and then you were able to use that voice? When did you actually find your voice?
Oh boy. Um, I think I keep finding my voice,
Mhm.
right? I would say I began to really recognize what my voice was probably about a year into my time with her.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
And what about the breath? You probably learned that from Gwendolyn, right?
Oh, breathing?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. I mean I knew about it already, to some degree, because I did have, in school we had a really great um glee club leader, teacher.
Mhm.
Her name was Eloise Haldeman. And she talked about singing from the diaphragm and that sort of thing. And actually, now that I think about it, something that I never ever mentioned and I just remembered, I did, my father was able to provide us with a little bit of performing arts training, because there was a performing arts school that he had done some work for, and my sisters and I were able to go on a scholarship. And so in inside of the performing arts school, which was on the weekend, we did talk about breathing from the diaphragm and that sort of thing. So it's something, I guess that's something I've always taken for granted that I've known
Mhm.
about, but I think Certainly working with Gwendolyn Wyatt, Catherine Hanson, who I studied with for a while, and Sue Fink, breathing was always part of, what I was taught. Um, Certainly I've enhanced those skills in the years that I've worked with Sue, and I've learned even more about breath control. Actually, she came up even like in the last few years with another exercise for me to do that even helps even more. So yeah, but it's all about the breath. If you don't have enough breath to hold your notes, it's not going to work the way you want,
Mhm.
right?
Are you able to describe that exercise for us?
Oh, sure. It's I'll actually do it. It's great to do. So basically you're supposed to take a long breath in and then a long breath out. And then a short breath in and a long breath out. And then a short breath in and a long, no, I said that wrong. And then whatever, I just said it backwards. Anyway, whatever it is, it's a long breath. I'm trying to do it while I'm describing it and I can't. So it's a long breath in, a long breath out,
Mhm.
a short breath in, a long breath out, a sh a short breath out, a long breath in, I think. Yeah. And then just like panting breathing, right?
Oh,
So it's all short like that. And then you like do the alphabet, right? On one note. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V. Ran out of the breath. Whatever. But that's the idea. W, X, Y, Z.
oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Oh, hmm. That's activating a lot of different parts of the voice, even with the enunciating all those the letters of the alphabet.
Yes, yes, because it also gets you to stretch your mouth.
Mm.
But of course, when I'm doing that exercise, I'm not usually sitting in a short director's chair. So
Are you do you sit when you do that exercise, or do you stand? What is the best position for that exercise?
well, standing is the best one.
Mm.
She does have a special like a bar stool so that I can like kind of almost sit and stand,
Oh,
to elongate my body so that I'm not like sitting with my tummy crunched.
oh, so it's a very tall bar stool. Is Are your feet able to reach the ground on that bar stool?
If I lean against it in a particular way, yes, I'm pretty short. So yeah, I have to kind of almost sit stand. Yes.
Okay, that's interesting because on a bar stool you kind of have to balance yourself, and that's uh uh maybe exercising your posture as well.
Excuse me. Yeah, it does for sure. It absolutely does. And actually, when I'm performing on stage, I actually have a different bar stool that I use so that my feet actually can touch the ground because it's people, I think people don't realize the physicality of singing. You need your whole body to do it well.
Mhm.
And so when I'm performing, I don't sit very often, but I generally do sit during one of at least one piece because it focuses me, it focuses the audience in a different way. But my feet are planted on the floor, and I'm kind of leaning forward a little bit, kind of like I'm doing now. And it takes, it takes a certain level of energy to do that well and really support yourself. Um, yeah.
When you project, so you have like a soft voice and a gentle voice, so you're not like projecting real like an opera singer, but you are able to project. So how do you balance singing softly but still projecting?
Oh boy, that it takes a lot of control. I mean, it's um I don't even know that I could demonstrate it for you, but it really is about owning the note and controlling the breath all at the same time
Mm,
to then push the sound in the way that is appropriate for that particular moment in the song.
mm,
Um, yeah, I don't know how else to explain the physicality of it, but a lot of it has to do with it. A lot of it's just breath control, and being deliberate in that moment, you know.
mm. But
Oh
when
yeah,
you,
emotion helps too. Emotion helps too. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, bringing the emotion to it. Every song for me is a mini play.
mm,
And so, owning the emotions of each song and the moment and the moment of each song along with the lyric or the moments inside the song and
mm,
the lyric inside of that moment. For me, I think helps do a lot of what you're talking about.
mhm. Well, if you think of maybe a lyric or two that you could sing for us to demonstrate it, that would be nice.
Oh my goodness. Well, I haven't vocalized yet today, so
Oh,
I don't know how good it's gonna sound, but I could try. But it's like, let me see. Um, Kind of in supper time,
mm,
I've said the whole that, I come back from the monologue and I say, and I just don't know what we're gonna do, and then I hum and I'm mm supper time. I should set the table 'cause it's supper time. And by that time, right?
mm,
That her husband has been lynched. And so it's easy for me to kind of go into the hum, which is contemplative. But then, the grief, the anger, the frustration and the pain of all of it can be disclosed to the audience because now they know the story. Those things help me to be able to push through and really deliver that in a stronger way. And it's interesting because when I recorded it, it's there, but since recording it and performing it live, I do it even more,
mm,
right? Because now I've got the audience engaged in that story. And
mm.
so I can give them that, okay, you're with me on this, and I can step into that note and I can step into that lyric and this part of the story because now we're all here. Does
Does
that
it?
make sense?
It does. It does. Does it drain you when you're singing such an affecting story that that has happened before? And when you like do maybe a take after take, does it
Mhm.
emotionally drain you?
That's a good question. I don't know that it drains me. Um, because I have to go on from there. I have a responsibility to the audience and to the listener to do something else. Of course, when I'm recording, I can take a break.
Mhm,
Um, I have to, it's interesting. I have to be in that moment and then I have to be able to move on to the next moment.
mhm,
And so, like when I'm performing live, what I generally do is I do that song and then I do 10 Good Years, which is to me very funny. I do, I am responsible with the audience and give them some levity before I shift gears like that so quickly on them.
mhm,
I think if I chose to do something else after that that was really heavy, I probably would be drained. What I can tell you is that it's nearly impossible for me to perform that song or even talk about it without um becoming emotional. I mean, my eyes are tearing now while we're talking about it. So I don't know that I can't allow it to drain me because I'd just be a nervous wreck if I went there all the time.
Mhm.
However, in any song that has profound meaning, believe me, my heart is in it and my emotions are in it, and I allow myself to go there emotionally, but I can't let it drain me.
Mhm. Have you ever sung the song Strange Fruit?
I haven't. I haven't. Um, yeah, that's interesting. And Suppertime was written about 6 years before Strange Fruit.
Oh. Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. And of course, because of the way that the lyric is framed without its context, you wouldn't know you wouldn't know the story. Whereas with Strange Fruit, it just goes right there.
Mhm.
And I acknowledge the profoundness of Strange Fruit, in its willingness to go there. You can't hide from it inside of the song. Um, I might be drained if I sang that song.
Mhm. 10 Good Years, it seems to me to be kind of a heavy song as well.
Oh, well, it is if you simply like look at the lyrics, but I think the way that the story is told, because it does have a punchline. It does. I mean, yeah, we're in a time where, now people are focusing a lot on doing things to artificially, um, I don't even want to say enhance, but alter. Yeah, artificially alter their appearance because they believe that that's what's going to be acceptable and all the rest of that.
Mhm.
I'm I like to look good no matter my age. I have not chosen, I can't say that I never would. I haven't chosen to have any plastic surgery. Um, but I think the song kind of pokes fun at the fact that we've all put this pressure on ourselves that basically all you've got is from 21 to 31, and everybody's still trying to look like they're between 21 and 31 when they're not.
Mhm.
Um, but it does, you know, I see the song more from the perspective of making it a joke than making it really serious.
Mhm.
That's just my way. And I think too, because the song was I'm not sure when the song was written. I know she recorded it in the 60s. And I think at that time plastic surgery wasn't so prevalent. But it more to me, that song is more about looking beyond the conversation of how the person gets there, that basically no matter your age, you still have it, you know. That's that's my interpretation of the song. That's where I stand inside of the song. It's like, hey, no matter what, put on your powder, throw away your fears. You've got 10 good years and you just keep on going. And then you have 10 more good years.
Oh.
So that's the way that I see it. Because actually, that is the lyric. It's like it talks about, all this panic at 31, and then some things happen. And then you've got 10 good years, 10 more good years. Big game or small game, you're back in the ball game, it appears. So yeah, it really is about continuing to live well. That's the way I see it. Live well and just keep, you know, rejuvenating yourself
Mhm.
and knowing that as long as you live, there's still possibility. That's the way that I see the song.
So that interlude with the laughter, is that what the storyteller, the singer, is laughing about?
No, that's a moment in time in the song. where there's panic because things didn't go well. So
Right.
there's the laughter and then there's the cry,
Mm,
right? And so again, it's that intensity in that moment in the song where, the singer, the storyteller thought life was gonna go one way and then it goes another.
mm,
And but it's kind of out of that laughter and then that cry that there's a change, and like, okay, I can't stay in this cry. I got to make another decision. That's it. I
mm,
must make another decision and reframe this for myself so that I can move on. And that's it. Is the moving on, whether it's plastic surgery or something else, there's another, something else needs to be created newly to look at like new possibilities.
mm.
That's how I see it.
So for supper time and let's say 10 good years, for Nancy Wilson, were those covers or were they written for her?
Well, Supper Time, as I mentioned, was written in 1933. I don't
Oh,
even, yeah,
right.
it was written for Ethel Waters.
Ah.
10 good years. To be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure. It could have been written for her. I know one of the composers on that was Luther Henderson, whose son ironically was the orchestra teacher at my high school,
Mm,
when I was in high school.
mm,
But I believe that the only person who's ever recorded that song is Nancy Wilson. Well, and now me. So
oh.
that song may have been written for her. Luther Henderson's son, Luther Henderson, is still alive, and in fact, I owe him a phone call. So I could ask him, he may know, but song may have been written for her.
Mm, okay, nice. Are there any other stories behind the songs on the album that you would like to tell us?
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. Um, there's so many stories, but this is an important one, especially right now. When Mark and I were putting the album together,
Mhm,
he asked me if there were any particular musicians that I really wanted on the album.
mhm,
And I told him that I really wanted to work with Russell Malone. And to me, that was like a bucket list dream thing.
mhm,
And I didn't even imagine that it was going to happen.
mm,
Because I've admired Russell's work for a really long time.
mhm,
And so Mark was like, well, let's just call him. And um fortunately, he agreed. And so I don't know how many other projects Russell did before he passed away so suddenly, but I feel so honored that he's on about half of the album and he's got two killer solos. One is on What a Little Moonlight Can Do, and the other starts the album, and it's Gentleman Friend. And
mhm,
so I'm really grateful for that. I'm still we had the last time I talked to him, we talked about working to, trying to figure out how to work together live.
mhm,
But yeah, I think I think that's the best story,
mhm.
is that I got to have my dream come true. And I'm so sorry that he's gone. Yeah.
Well, how long have you been wanting to work with him and you never got the chance until this album?
Yeah, I've been wanting to work with him for years. I've known about him for years.
Mm,
And I saw him live in San Francisco, I don't know, about 16 years ago,
mm,
and he was playing guitar for vibraphone is Bobby Hutcherson, who's also gone now. And I was mesmerized and so impressed. And of course then I could hear him on recordings, and I bought several of his recordings. I loved the way he played, and he honored in his playing, he honored the lyric and the sentiment of the song.
Mhm.
Some musicians don't really care about the lyrics, but Russell did. Um, and so yeah, I didn't think I was ready before then,
Mhm.
before we did this album. But this time I really wanted him, and I didn't think he was gonna say yeah, but he did.
Did you ever speak with him before this album?
Yeah, oh yeah. I went to the Jazz Congress in New York in January of 2020, and they had a session where it was he and Kevin Eubanks and another guitarist. I can't even remember who it was. All I could see was Russell, and I was intimidated and I wanted to talk to him. And fortunately, another guitarist from LA, Jacques Lashore, or a guitarist from LA, because Russell's on the East Coast, whom I know. I asked Jacques if he would introduce me to Russell. And so I did get to talk to him, and he was hilarious. And
Mhm.
uh yeah, yeah.
This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM, and we have with us on WZRD Amber Weeks, jazz vocalist. It sounds to me as if Russell Malone is kind of like Nancy Wilson,
In what way?
uh, uh, concentrating on the lyric. Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yes, definitely, definitely. I mean, of course, he's not going to sing it. He's going to play it. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still just caught up in my sadness. Um, yeah, yes. And there was an interview he did where he actually talks about that and how important that is.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even in his own featured work, you can hear it. I right now, what I think about is his rendition of um, I guess I'll hang my teardrops to dry as I sit here crying. Because you could hear it in that. Um, there's also a song called "You Needed Me" that Anne Murray did, and he recorded an instrumental of it, and you can hear in his playing the same sentiment of the lyrics, even though there are no lyrics there. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm. Wow, it was quite a legend.
yeah. He was very special.
Mhm. What other artists inspired you?
Top of the list, someone who was from Chicago, and that's Oscar Brown Jr.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I did actually get to know Oscar a little bit before he died, and in fact, he is to this date my most famous house guest. Yeah, 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 yeah. I loved Oscar. Yeah, and
Have
I
you
I appreciate his music.
mhm. Have you ever played together at all?
We did. We did. I had recorded Hazel's Hips um on a promotional album that I did some years ago, and then it's on Around Midnight Reimagined as well.
Mhm.
Um, but I met Oscar a long time ago, and I told him that I performed Hazel's Hips, and he looked at me and he said, "I've never heard a woman sing that song. I got to hear you do that song." Well, I got so intimidated, I never called him. And at the time, he was living in LA. So some years later, I got to meet him. They were doing a documentary about him that's since been released called Music My Life, Politics My Mistress. It was made by Donnie Betts.
Mhm.
And Donnie and I became friends. Anyway, Donnie wanted to raise money to complete the documentary. And so there was a fundraiser here in LA, and Oscar was here for it. And so we actually performed Hazel's Hips together. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking that must have been very fun.
Oh, it was a blast. It was a blast. And I caught him off guard because, excuse me, at the end of the way that the place where we were performing was a private home. The way that it was set up, we were in this room and there were like stairs behind us. So as the song was ending, because it's all about his looking at the back part of her. So I actually walked up the stairs and out of the room as the song was ending.
Mm.
So yeah, no, we had a good time with it.
Mhm.
We had a good time with it. Yeah.
Have you ever spent time in Chicago? If you did, what did you do here?
I have not been to Chicago yet. It's
Oh.
top of the list, to be honest with you. It's one of the reasons why I'm going to be in Indianapolis at the Max Expo.
Mm.
Essentially it is much like a booker's audition, the performance I'm doing. I would really like to perform in Chicago, and I do believe that people from the area will be there who can book me. I am also, I don't want to say too much, but I am talking to people who are in the Midwest who can assist me in getting booked in the Chicago area because I would really love to have that opportunity
Mm.
to perform in Oscar's home state and his city of birth.
Mm. Have you started thinking about your next project yet, or too busy with the current one?
Well, actually, we've already started talking about what we're going to do next. So, um, there is likely going to be a single released sometime early to mid next year, while we work on another LP.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I won't say any more than that, other than my intention is that it'll probably be a single that I want to give people a little bit of romance,
Mm.
right? Maybe around Valentine's Day, maybe around the first day of spring, somewhere in there. Just a little something, and then we'll release another album probably in 26.
Mhm. What would your advice be for uh, people who want to sing, for uh, aspiring singers or jazz vocalists?
Well, um, learn your craft. Um, to me, it's important also to honor those who've come before, to really not imitate them. Because, for instance, this is a celebration of Nancy Wilson. I sound nothing like Nancy Wilson. I have no intentions of sounding like Nancy Wilson, but she certainly inspired me. There's a lot of inspiration in what's come before. Um, delve into that, listen to it, see what you can bring newly to it while you honor it at the same time. Having training is important, I think. Um, as I mentioned earlier, singing it is a physical activity. And so just like, basketball players and track runners and gymnasts and all these people we just saw at the Olympics, they require training and development of their muscles. The muscles for singing are the same. And if you want to do it over the long haul, you have to be able to honor your instrument in a very special way. And um, there are people who may not support you and tell you that it's a dream, but it's your dream and it's yours. And so I would say walk away from the people who discourage you and run to the people who love and support you. And to quote Henry David Thoreau, go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life you've imagined.
Has anybody ever discouraged you?
Oh yeah, plenty,
Mm,
plenty, especially early on. Oh, you'll never make it. If you make it, it'll be just because of your looks. Don't know what you're doing. Blah, 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 all those other things. Yeah, I heard some of that.
mm.
I heard some of that definitely, but I
Were they
kept
bullying?
going.
Yes. Were they bullying you because or were you just starting out and learning and they were uh just being critical of what you were at that point?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's difficult for me to really know someone else's motivations for what they do.
Mhm,
I think I think it's a little of all of it. I think some of it is unfortunately they're people who forget to dream
mhm,
and may be intimidated by those of us who haven't forgotten how to dream.
mhm,
I think there's that. Um, I do think, when I started, I had some growth that was needed. I did. And a little bit of grace, with by those who made those comments would have been wonderful. But again, I can't get inside of somebody's head to figure out what their motivations are.
mhm,
I do know, um, I've had my own experience with people who, like I said, who've forgotten how to dream and think I'm crazy for continuing to dream
mhm,
and to just keep doing what I'm doing. There's a joy I get in performing. There's a specialness for me about being able to engage with an audience or to record something that I can give to people. Because to me, I really want to give to people. And I really want to, yeah, I'm the one standing on the stage and all the eyes are on me, but it really isn't about that. It's about channeling something inside of myself and providing love and healing to people. And I think sometimes that gets missed by someone who just doesn't get it. But again, I'm coming up with a lot of different reasons why I think people do what they do. And honestly, what somebody else thinks is none of my business.
when when you are performing and then you want to give this joy to the audience,
Yes.
um do you see that joy, do you recognize that joy uh getting into the audience?
Oh, constantly.
Mm,
And it's interesting because, you know, basically while I'm standing up there, they're not going to say anything to me. The communication comes more through, delivery of song and then applause,
mm,
right? Sometimes somebody stands, that kind of thing. But I definitely, and it depends on the venue. Sometimes I can see nobody, and sometimes I can see people like just in front of me at the base of the stage. Um, I can see it in their eyes. I can hear it in, it's almost like I can feel the energy in the room, like when I do summertime. I've recorded both summertime and summertime, so I'm messing up the title of the song. When I perform summertime, I can definitely feel the audience,
mhm,
you know. And I have seen them, I have seen people wipe their eyes you know but I can feel in the room that people are enveloped in the story. I can definitely feel it. And then of course when I'm done, with the applause and kind of the moan sometimes that I hear when the song is over. In fact, one time I was in New York performing, and I did I think it was the first time that I had done supper time live. And so
mhm,
I did supper time, and there was this woman in front of me, and she says, "Well, I'm really sad, and now you got to make me happy." And I looked at her, I said, "Don't worry, I've got you." And so then I went into 10 good years, but responsibly set the song up to take people through the transition. It's like, okay, we're changing gears now. We're going over here. Um, yeah, no, I can definitely feel it. I can definitely feel it, you know. Like I said, sometimes it's in people's eyes, sometimes it's when I get to the end of the song. Sometimes I can feel people holding their breath, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your audience, are they from all races? Is there like any race that is more apt to attend your performances?
Well, that's a good question. I think I mean I am a black woman, so there are, you know, there are a lot of black people in the audience, but one of the things that I'm very happy about is that I do have a diverse audience and that's what I want.
Mhm.
You know, I'm fortunate in that way that I do have a quite a diverse audience, and in fact, um, I want to encourage that. I was a good example is I was just offered a gig on October 11th, and I was going to do it, and then I realized that it's one of the Jewish high holy days. I believe it's Yom Kippur,
Mhm.
and so I had to turn it down. You know, because I know for my Jewish friends, that's like one of the two high holidays of the year. And I don't want to be in a situation where they're not going to come because they have a religious expression that's important to them,
Mhm.
right? So I do try to consider those things because I want, I definitely want to be inclusive. And you know, I think especially now, that's really important.
Mhm. If our listeners want to learn more about you, Amber Weeks, where should they go?
Best place is to go to my website, which is Amber Weeks, and my name is spelled AmberWeekes. So it's amberweeks.com. And my website has, you know, information about all of my recordings. And you can also sign up to join my newsletter. And my newsletter comes out probably every 3 months or so. I don't send out anything else other than like notices about performances and that sort of thing. So you're not going to get a whole bunch of stuff from me. And I would love it if they would do that because I'd love to keep in touch with people.
Thank you so much, Amber, for joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and an honor.